Whether you're looking to buy, sell, or use data from data brokers, this is the video for you. My name's Michael Fisher Jr. I'm the founder of Data Bindu LLC, which provides software solutions and technology consulting. I've been a data scientist for, I don't even know at this point, many years. And when clients come to me asking if an idea is possible, quite often what it comes down to is whether or not the available data that would be needed is there, whether I can acquire the data, and by knowing the current state of the art with machine learning and AI and the analysis that can be done, I can formulate whether or not this idea is possible. And so I thought, why not show some of the sources for obtaining data or for selling data? So you have data of purchasing gas at a gas station. You own a gas station, you have this transaction data, and you want to make a buck from it. You can sell that data, people can buy it from you, and there are data brokerages, data brokers, information sellers, where you can post that data and make money from it. And so I'm going to detail how you can do this. This is the first of many videos on the subject, but I hope you learn something with me. So this is a data scientist's guide to buying, selling, and using data. So here are main sources of data which I turn to quite often when I am in the system architecture and idea stage. So a client may say, hey, I need a certain kind of medical data. I need MRI results on a knee, and I need it to be this certain brand of MRI machine. Then I'll go on these links and I'll search for that data, or I'll make a data request. So data raid, there's a request data button where you will type out what you need. So you'll say, I need this certain MRI machine. I need it to be on knees. I need it to be anonymized data, and so on, right? And you request the demographic if you want, and you can request where the data comes from, and so on. But these are some of my main links that I go to source data for projects, and I think you may find these valuable. They all have their own different formats and requirements, but they are useful, and I think you'll be surprised at the end of these slides. You'll see some surprising uses of data or surprising examples of data which are posted on some of these data brokers. Here's some more sources. This is more machine learning based and specialized data sets. Some of these are free, but I think this first slide will be more valuable if you're in this realm. So when clients approach me and they ask whether an idea is possible or not, more often than not, I have to tease out the requirements for that system. I have to find what's the scope of the data. You know, do you want a certain demographic? Do you want it from a certain geolocation or from a certain time period, and so on? And so as sort of the idea verification person, you need to find out what are their requirements for the system that they're trying to make, and then try to match that to the data sources that are out there to see if you can find the data that's required. And then you also need to know the features that you want, of course, right? If you need someone's name, or you need a law court case, or you need someone's criminal record, or what have you, you have to be able to tell if that information is out there. Or because if it's not, and the idea that the client brings to you requires that data, then you're going to have to tell them, we can't obtain this directly through these data brokers, but perhaps we could scrape it. And then your next step would be to find sources of that information, websites containing that information, which then you can create what's called a web scraper to collect that information. And that's a whole different topic, which requires a whole different area of expertise and system constraints and so on. So we won't get into that here much more. And so with buying data, there's usually different payment options. I take this directly from dataraid.ai, and I think it's a nice example to show, okay, the data I'm purchasing is it going to be a one-time deal where you want a collection of data from 1990 to 1999, say, 9 years, and it's static, and so if you purchase it, then you have all the information for that time frame. Nothing's going to change. There's no updates that are going to be required. So in that case, you could do a one-time purchase of the data, and often the prices can vary, and sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on what kind of data you want, but you would have to check per project. And then there are ongoing payment options where it's not static. The data is going to change over time, and your software solution or your idea would require new information coming in, and the system would have to reflect that new information. It would have to be able to account for the new information. And so usually with that, it would be an API call. So you'd request the most recent data, and then you would integrate that into your system. And then there's also usage-based. This is usually a metered API, where depending on how much data you're using, how many API calls and so on, there's different ways that you can price it. But depending on your usage or the requests, they'll charge you for that, basically. So the ongoing could be a subscription, but then the usage-based could be, it's a metered API. They'll see how much resources you're using, and they'll charge you based on that. You may ask, why buy the data? Why do you need data? And like I said, if a client comes to you and asks, is this idea possible? Can I convert this into code? Well, you need to know if the data's out there, because like I said before, if it's not, well, you're going to have to do the research to try to see if that information is online. And if it's not online, well, you're probably not going to be able to do the project. So that's one reason why you'd want to buy data. The second reason is, say it's not on the data brokers that I just showed. Well, then you're going to have to scrape it. And that requires know-how and the infrastructure to scrape that given website. And depending on what the website is and how much they want to protect their initial data, say a social media website, they may have anti-scraping measures so that you might have to solve CAPTCHAs or type in certain words or what have you, right? There's certain requirements they might impose upon a user to make sure that it's not a scraper. It's not a bot trying to collect all the information. Whereas if it's a public government website or something, if it's, it's not top secret data, there's no business that is monetizing it like social media websites are, it's just sort of in the public domain. It's information that anyone can know about. Then those sites quite often don't care about you scraping it, or at least they don't have measures to prevent you from scraping it. And so with the social media websites, say you're trying to scrape Facebook or LinkedIn, you might run into what's called an IP ban, where those social media websites can tell from this IP address, you're just been collecting, you've been on our website for, days or whatever it may be. And they may start wondering, well, this doesn't seem like human activity, right? It doesn't seem like a human would be using our social media platforms for days on end or extremely long times on end. And so they may do something like an IP ban for that. But these are some reasons why you'd want to buy the data. And then once you do buy it, whether it's a single purchase or a lump sum or a metered API, usually these data brokers give various methods to obtain the data, whether it's an S3 bucket, which is Amazon Web Services, or a direct download for if it's a one-time deal and it's static and it's not updating. Maybe they'll give you a link to download it, or you'll download it as a zip. And then if it's metered, it could be an API access and so on. But it really would depend on the purchase options and the project requirements. So some of the interesting data examples of data that you can buy, there are businesses that allow you to buy resumes, business to business resumes. You can also buy horse racing data, metadata on podcasts. That could be the view count. There could also be demographic information of who's watching each podcast. There also are subscriptions for who's visiting certain stores. You can also get foot traffic, so they can tell who's in a certain area, what their trips are home or to work, and what stores are in between. The data out there is very detailed and very descriptive, and if you aggregate it together, you can really do some incredible things with that sort of information. A common example would be, I don't know if it's Walmart or other big name realtors, but they usually do market research on where they should open new stores. These examples are what they would use partially to determine where a store should be located based on its profitability and how many people it would be able to service and so on. And so big name stores like that collect this sort of information to see, well, who lives around this area? How many people would be coming to the store? What are their purchase histories like? You know, do they buy things which we have on our shelves and so on? And there are quite a few weird data examples, but you can basically buy just about anything. So, with that being said, say you have a business or you have some devices, maybe you own a vending machine or something like that, and you have what's being bought and sold at your vending machine, and you're like, okay, who would want to know what people are buying at a certain vending machines? Well, it's important information. If you were, say, a bottled water company and you wanted to know what people were buying and if they were buying your water and how hot a certain vending machine was, for example, you know, if people are just lining up for this vending machine, then a company like that would want to know those things so they could be there to sell that certain brand of water, for example, or that bag of chips or whatever is in this vending machine. And so even something as small as vending machine history and transaction history of who's buying it, even if that's just a credit card number, it doesn't have to be pinned to an individual, but it could just be a way of interpreting the data, more or less. But that information is important. People do want to know that kind of information. And so you may think that who would ever want to buy this data? If some weird thing, right? Who would want to know how many bike rentals are being made in a certain town? Well, that's important to someone because marketing, more often than not, has a use for that data because companies want to get their brand and product out to people. And so knowing what a certain demographic or a certain area, what their interests are, and so on is vital for companies and organizations. And so no matter how weird the data is, I mean, there are limits to it, of course. I can't think of any right now, but I'm sure there are limits. But no matter the data, there's likely a demand for it. And you can sell the data. And I've mentioned a few ways. And now with those same links that I provided, they would each have their own requirements on how you would upload that data and then how you would sell it, right? Is it a one-time download? Is it a subscription? And so on. But these would be the places you could sell that data. Not all these. You can't sell the data on data.gov. These top three for sure. And then lastly here, using the data. So this is the easiest one. This just depends on however you purchased it and those data brokers, how they distribute the data. So you just load it into your application, do whatever sort of analysis or machine learning models you need. And that's that. Like I said, my name's Michael Fisher Jr. I'm the founder of databindu.com, and I'm a technology consultant and computer programmer, and I do these things. And so if you're interested in selling your data, please reach out to me, and we can set up an initial consultation and a meeting, and we can figure out how much it would cost to either sell the data or to, say, access data if that's what you're looking for. You're not looking to sell it. You want to collect some data or you want to see if it's out there. You can also contact me for that. At any rate, that's it for now, folks. I hope you learned something or found this presentation informative. Until next time.